Hey, what's going on, everybody? I know it's been a little bit. You've probably caught me on Instagram with Sunday Night Ballers. I may repurpose some of those interviews. There's some great interviews there with AJ Jackson and myself. But it was time to do another podcast, and I'm excited to be joined by my new friend, Coach John Scott. Coach Scott has played and coached at every level from high school, college, professional. He's got a tremendous history, and he is a huge advocate for basketball players here in the state who want to go and compete at the next level. And he's got a really, really cool event that he's doing here in April. So I want to talk about that event first, and we'll hear a little bit more about his background. So let's get to it. This is the Utah High School Hoops Podcast, your source for sometimes informative, but always entertaining coverage of the Utah High School Hoops scene. With your host, Adam Beek. Coach John Scott, how are you doing today?
Adam, great to hear you and be on the show with you. And you're the first at everything because Adam was the first man, right?
That's right. That's right. Numero uno. Also, kind of my bad. There's a whole story behind, original sin and stuff like that. But it wasn't actually me. I didn't exist then. I was just named after the guy. First of all, I appreciate you coming in here. Obviously, sneaker brand neutral. You got the Adidas jacket with the Under Armour hat. So you're already setting the tone that you have no agenda other than just to help kids. I know you've written a ton of books. You do a bunch of training. You've helped out so many kids, so many coaches. And before we get into your background, I wanted to hit on this event that you have coming up. So I want you to talk about it, but it sounds like you take a group of both boys and girls, separate times.
Different
You
weeks.
go to the Pacific Northwest. Yeah, different weeks. You go to the Pacific Northwest, and you play basketball in front of, dozens, maybe, I don't remember how many coaches are going to be there. You play like 5 or 6 games throughout the week, and then you fly home. What an amazing opportunity for these players to know for sure, I'm going to go poop. I'm going to go hoop. I said play and hoop, and it came out poop. I'm going to go hoop.
Hopefully they don't play that.
And and you're gonna be able to play in front of coaches. So tell us a little bit about that event and how long it's been going on.
Yeah, interestingly enough, it's called the Northwest Basketball Recruiting Tour. And we've done it for a few years now. Every time we've gone up there, we've placed every player we've taken. And so we're going to play in front of up to 60 college coaches in 5 days.
Amazing.
Now, most college coaches, having been one 3 times, I can tell you if you're not a Division I coach, your average recruiting budget is $1,000 to $2,000 a year to find athletes nationwide. It's very difficult to do. And so these coaches that are in the Northwest are a target-rich environment for Utah kids. Utah has 11 colleges and universities, 7 are Division I. Then you got Westminster, Division II, and they only have 6 athletic scholarships, plus their $50,000 a year. And then you have the 3 junior colleges, but they're Division I level junior colleges, and this junior college conference, I've coached in it twice, is the number 1 ranked competitive junior college conference in the entire country out of 600 junior colleges. So they have a lot of Division I kids. So it's very tough to stay home in the state of Utah and play unless you've already been offered. I was on the phone this morning with a mom about this Northwest trip. She goes, well, we've been debating between doing this and going down to Texas with this club team. They need an extra player. And I just explained to her the realities of club ball. I was an AAU player. I was an AAU coach. I love it. But as a college coach, I had a list of 2 or 3 players I was going to see at a tournament. Mm-hmm. I already knew them. I knew their names. I knew their court times. I knew their games. So getting discovered in that kind of environment is extremely difficult. What we've done is invite up to 64 college coaches into 6 geographic cities in the Northwest. I've already had over 30 college coaches contact us back and say, I'll be in Portland, I'll be in Seattle, I'll be in Walla Walla, I'll be in Olympia, Washington at the event to watch your players. They like our players. They know our players are all state caliber players, and they've had great results with our kids. One example, Colton Blackham, that played at West Jordan High School last year, was a region MVP. When we started out on this little adventure, he didn't have anybody. He ended up with over a dozen schools that wanted him. He's leading the entire Northwest in assists for all junior colleges.
Yeah.
And I had 4 calls on him this past week saying, Coach, I should have listened to you. Should have taken that Blackham kid because he just shredded us. He shreds everybody. That's why I called him the blender. He's great at what he does. So we're going to take these kids up. We're paying for their plane tickets. We're paying for their hotel rooms. It's just one price for everything other than spending money and one meal a day. And we're going to take them to these 6 locations. We're going to be playing. Everybody's going to play 3 full quarters. Going to get lots of playing time, get lots of exposure. And they're going to be exposed to what I would consider to be prime targets for colleges for kids in Utah that are great kids, great students. Maybe they need to go to a Division II JUCO, not Division III, but a Division II. Maybe they need to go to a Division III or an NAI or an NCAA Division II school. And that's who we're going to have in the gyms with us. So
Coach,
they love what we're bringing.
You make a great point, right? That being in Utah is very difficult for a number of reasons. It's not difficult because the competitive nature of basketball here is bad. It's tremendously good. We were on last night talking about the Utah prospects getting the EYBL deal. That didn't happen because Utah sucks at basketball. We have a really good pedigree for basketball here. But you talk about how the in-state schools do really there's not a tremendous amount of opportunities for kids in state. And so it does become important, right? But AAU, as much as I love it and my son plays it, it's like it's a bit of a crapshoot unless you have a plan. It's just like I hope coaches get to see me. The thing that I really loved about this when you were telling me is now correct me if I'm wrong. It's for per player is like $3,000 or something like that around there.
Right,
And that
covers pretty much everything on the trip.
Covers everything on the trip. Which you might be like, wow, that's a lot. Well, in comparison to doing maybe a post-grad AAU events, going on a circuit, it's actually pretty light. And at least is from my perspective, you are guaranteed to play in front of coaches that are at the level that you should be playing in front of coaches at, right? Like the NY, it's hard for the NY coaches to come here. It's hard for the D3 coaches to come here because, like you said, they have limited budgets. But for a lot of kids, it's a great opportunity. And you look at what's happening, a kid like Tyler Burriston, who has been able to go from, I think he was at Corner Canyon, went to Green River, and now he's at, I think, Alaska Anchorage, maybe. Like there are pathways through the NWAC to get into Division I, Division II basketball.
Yeah, Coach Drake's at Green River. I'm a good friend of his. I've placed players with him.
Yeah, he's
you can
fantastic.
name almost any college up there, and I can tell you who the coach is. And we've had relationships with these coaches for years because, like I said, I've been a college coach 3 times. So they've also, a lot of those schools have taken players that we've had in the past, and they love our players. They're great kids. They're great students. They don't have to babysit them. Let me just put out there so people know how to get a hold of us or look at information on this. Go to basketball doctor, doctor.net, N-E-T, like the net on the rim, basketballdoctor.net, or you can text 801-550-9131, 801-550-9131. But
okay, hang on. I'm going to put this up on, so it's basketballdoctor.net or text, what was the number? Sorry.
801 550
okay
9131.
All right, watch this. Watch what we're gonna do. This is the magic. Go. Hey, did I spell it?
There you
Look
go.
at what we got here. Basketballdoctor.net or text 801-550-9131. If you're interested in not only
trip.
Yeah, but you have a ton of resources.
Yeah, I've done more books and videos. This is just audio, or do they see video?
They can see video. It's both an audio and a video podcast. So if you're listening to this he's got a bunch of books.
I've done more books and videos on basketball than any coach in history. And I had some of my former teammates say, "Why did you do all that?" I said, "Because I could never get a date." It's really simple. But basketball is my passion. I might be the only person you ever meet that spent their entire vacation week at the Basketball Hall of Fame library, 12 hours a day studying books and videos.
Mm.
And so I'm a real student of the game. I have been my whole life. It's a great tool resource. Billy Graham, the great evangelist, said that one coach can touch more lives in 1 year than most people do in a lifetime. And so we all have vehicles. Basketball, I've been fortunate, has been my vehicle to do a lot of things in life. And this is going to be a tremendous trip. We're going to do some other things for fun, like visit Nike headquarters, which is like the Taj Mahal of sports. We're going to visit the Space Needle. We're going to do some fun things as we're out and about.
Bring the Sonics back to Seattle.
I'd like to.
Yeah,
they need to be there. But yeah, I started out on the podcast talking about this mom that I was talking to this morning. I went down to Salinas, Utah this weekend on Saturday. They had 1A, 2A, 3A through 6A All-Star games for the girls. And so we met a lot of girls that are interested in the trip. I think we're going to fill it up pretty quick this week, to be honest with you. The mom was saying, we've been through this a little bit, but we were debating about going to Texas with the club team or doing this trip, and we wanted to learn more. And she said, we kind of went through this. Our older daughter played at Snow College in Southern Idaho Community College and then went on to Weber State and played. But she had her offers early in the year. And I said, no, you're exactly right. She said, our daughter now that's a senior is talking to some schools, but nobody's offered her. And I said, well, they're holding out because she's not on the top of their recruiting board. And you got to recognize that a contact is not a contract when it comes to college coaches. If you're the college coach and you wanted a player, wouldn't you put the offer on the table like right away?
Yep.
Absolutely. So don't be deceived by a conversation. You need to get out there and get in front of coaches at the right competition levels. If you want to keep playing, so you have opportunities to play, you want to be in a good environment, and you want to get as much funding as possible, and we'll help in all those areas.
And I would say this too. I've heard a lot about obviously how recruiting has changed. I'm sure that you've seen that quite a bit. And recruiting has changed, but it doesn't mean that change is bad. To me, it's still a question of, are you able to cast a wide enough net in order to land where you want to be? So I was able to talk to, there was a player who played at Colorado State University. His name's Joe Palmer. He graduated last year. And Joe was able to get some FaceTime with him, like over FaceTime, me, him, my son. And Joe was telling us, he said, when I was in high school, I had to go where I could play. And where I could play at the time was Division III basketball. And so we found a D3 in Minnesota. That's where he grew up. He went, played there. He got a lot better. But then he wasn't on anyone's radar for Division I until a friend of his that he knew, who was also connected to the CSU program, called up Coach Medved and was like, hey, you guys got to take a look at this kid. He's been playing D3 for, I think, 3 years. Tremendous athlete. They come out, they watch him. He ends up at CSU. Now he's played in Serbia. He's playing right now over in Australia. He's a professional basketball player, right? A kid who wasn't recruited at all out of high school. And it's not kids don't. It's not like I'm not getting recruited because I'm not good enough. That could be the case, but in a lot of cases, you're not getting recruited because you just think like, well, magically everyone's just going to come find me.
Right.
And that's not the case anymore. You have to cast a very wide net. You have to be connected to people like yourself who can make calls. And by the way, who coaches are reaching out to, saying, hey, Coach Scott, what do you think about Johnny? He reached out to me on Twitter. I watched some of his highlights. And you could be like, I watched Johnny play. He has no motor. He's pouts on the bench all the time. You want nothing to do with him. Done. You didn't even know that Coach Scott was in the gym while you were moping around and whining to the refs and, cussing out your teammates. So to me, it's just like, it's just different, but that doesn't mean it has to be bad. It means that you just have to be intentional with what you're doing.
Yeah. And you bring up a couple of really good points. I always tell my players when it comes to how you act and conduct yourself on the court, that negativity never ends positively. So stay positive, be the loudest guy on the floor, be the biggest guy in the gym. But even when you're talking about coaches not having a big net, they don't. I mentioned earlier that the average recruiting budget's $1,000 to $2,000 a year to find athletes nationwide. At Salt Lake, our budget was about $7,000. That's not a huge budget. We can only fly in a few kids. And we were ranked number 1 in the nation, number 3 in the nation, number 5 in the nation every year when I was there with Coach Kyle Taylor. So, it is limited what they can do. They have to know you're out there, and it becomes imperative. I've got a 6'6" kid from Nevada that's going to go on this trip with the guys. He's been all state twice, but he didn't play his senior year. He was hurt. But despite that, he set season and career 3-point shooting records at his high school, and he can stroke the ball. So he has had nobody really offering him interacting with him. And we've started to get involved with him. And he's already, because I've sent info out on some of the players that are going on the trip, I've already got coaches contacting him saying, wow, where were you? Because they don't go to Mesquite, Nevada to recruit kids.
No.
And that's another good point, honestly, Adam, is it's never about the size of the student athlete's school. It's always about the size of the student athlete's abilities.
Yep.
So you can be from a small school and play Division I. I've seen, when I coached 1A basketball for a couple of years, I saw 2 different years, 2 kids on 2 different teams that were both, they were both Division I kids. They both went and played Division I. It was a little 1A school.
Yeah. I posted about, and I promise this will be my last Colorado State reference, but we did win the Mountain West Conference tournament, which was a pretty big deal, first time since 2003. But Nick Clifford at Colorado State played all 4 years at the Vanguard Academy in Colorado Springs, which is a small 3A school. Didn't transfer, stayed there. He won Colorado Player of the Year, went to CU, didn't quite work out at CU. He transferred to Colorado State, and he's going to be a first-round draft pick this year. He's gonna make millions of dollars playing in the NBA. And he didn't go. He played at a tiny high school in Colorado Springs, which is not a hotbed of basketball. But that's where I'm from. It's okay for me to say that. It's not a hotbed of basketball. We had Reggie Jackson, Pat Garrity, and now Nick Clifford are really the 3 guys.
Yeah, it's not Bourbon Day High School in LA. It's not, schools back in New Jersey. It's definitely not. So, it's just players that are doubting because they haven't heard from coaches if they're good enough or not. If you made an all-state team, you probably are good enough. You might need to chip away at a few rough edges on your game and simplify your game and get better at 2 skills on offense, 2 on defense, 2 on fast breaks, and become consistently great at those things. But that means you could probably play somewhere.
Yeah. Tell me about your training. So you've got this event. First of all, how many spots do you think you have available for this is mostly a boys high school podcast, not because I don't think girls basketball is worth talking about. I just don't have time to keep up with it. So tell me about the space on this trip as of today, which is, I don't even know what today is. Monday. Oh, it's St. Patrick's Day.
St. Patrick's Day. I've got green socks on.
Yeah. So tell me how many spots do you think are realistically available?
We have 7 left right now, but I have several that I know are committing in the next couple of days. So we're going to carry 14 kids total, and we will fill it up. We're not just saying, okay, you can go because you said I want to go. I mean, we're going to interview you. We want to see your highlight tape. We want to know that you're the right kind of player. I mean,
do they play against each other, or do they play against the players from the school, or how does that work?
Great question. We're going to be playing against college players at these colleges.
Yeah.
And our kids, we play a very simple process. We're teaching them how to read and react, how to make good reads. We put 1 guy in the post. We put 4 around the perimeter. You pass screen away. You screen the next guy. Guys get open if you just move and take guys out and set good screens. So it's simple. So it actually accentuates your best skills. If you get an open for a 3, you're going to get lots of 3s no matter who you are on this trip. Mm-hmm. If you're good at driving or jump shots in the middle, you're going to get a lot of opportunities. If you're good at in the post, but you had guards that would never give it to you, you're going to get seen very, very well on this trip.
That is an underrated thing. I mean, I don't know how many times, because I grew up in obviously a different era of basketball, but it was like you rewarded the big man, right? I mean, I'm 5'10", so I knew how to do a couple things on a basketball court, but throwing an entry pass to a post player right where he had his hand was like, That was my bread and butter. Over the top, throw a bounce pass in. That was always, you reward the big man. And then if he can't eat, if he can't go get a bucket, well, then that's on him. But you don't see a lot of that anymore, at least in high school basketball. But I'm seeing it more and more in college, and certainly the NBA right now is kind of being dominated by a lot of big men, traditional, back to the big men.
The game always goes through these phases where they go away from it. When the 3-point line first came out, that's the first year, 1984. People didn't know what to do with it, honestly. Most coaches initially hated it. Now everybody grooms to play toward it. But you got to understand, if they're getting airtight on you on the perimeter, on all your perimeter guys, you're not going to shoot threes. And jacking up a bad three is not a good idea. So what's wide open at that point? The post. So go let them score, 4 out of 6 buckets, and then the other coach goes, wait a minute, they're hurting us in the post. They'll back off. It frees up 3-point shots, so you're open. So it's just making good reads.
Yep.
And doing it together, because if you're a smart guard, you'll encourage a big man every time they give you a rebound on a defensive rebound, or they get in the ball in the post and they go score. I mean, you should sing their praises, because they'll be the first one to give you the ball.
Yep.
And me,
and by the way,
I liked having the ball in my hand, so I was praising everybody.
By the way, when I was a student manager at CSU, I had to track 3-point shots percentages, either a swing into a shot or a post touch or a paint touch into a 3-point shot. And if you can get the ball in the paint, either to a post player or on a dribble drive in a kick, most college players are going to shoot about 50 to 60% makes on those 3-point shots. It's incredible. Even high school kids,
wide open.
But not only that, you're already squared up. You don't.
Right.
There's no movement. You're standing there. The pass comes out to you. You have to catch it, and then you rise up and shoot it.
Yeah, it's a rhythm shot. It's an easy shot.
So you want to encourage the ball to get in the paint, especially if you're a shooter. You want to be able to get the ball in, throw in the post, relocate, get an open three. Like it doesn't have to be complicated. Basketball can be a very boring game. And if you don't believe me, watch the NBA playoffs, and they will hunt if you can't play defense in the NBA to the level of the NBA, all the playoffs are just, Luka Doncic hunting ball screens till he finds the worst defender, breaking him down, and then creating. That's literally the entirety of almost all offense in the NBA playoffs, because they've just simplified it. You don't see a ton of complex stuff. It's insane for me to watch that happen. And then you watch college and high school, and it's like, why does everybody make this game so much more complicated? Just take advantage of your mismatch where it is and do it over and over and over and over and over and over again until somebody stops you.
Just make simple reads, you
Yep.
know? And I mean, the NBA's got 24 seconds, but you figure by the time they get the ball down the court, they're down to 18 seconds. So they have to make good decisions. What high school and most college players don't do is they don't know how to make good reads, how to make good decisions. And our players will learn that on this trip very quickly. College coaches that we brought players to, they love it because our players play the right way. And we're grooming them on that while we're on the trip.
I love it.
Well, really good.
Still got this scrolling down there, basketballdoctor.net, 801-550-9131. And Coach Scott, I know I've tried to kick it over to this a little bit, but we'll kind of wrap it up here with, you're also doing a bunch of training here locally. I know on some, I think it's on Monday nights, you have some runs. Would people who are interested in either training, I'm guessing books, or just open runs beyond just, if you're 14, 15 years old and you're looking to get involved, you're not going to go on this trip, but how could they get involved with you?
Yeah, we actually start kids. I do one-on-ones younger than grade 7, but we do grade 7 through 9 boys, unless they're advanced players, with varsity girls and our college girls that come back, because it's competitive. The junior high boys get real competitive with the girls. It's more physical. But then we do grades 10 through college with the older group, and it's on Monday nights. We'll not have more than 20 kids in our training group. Just to give you an idea, the kids that I've been involved in training in the last 12 years, I've trained 8 state MVPs or Mr. Basketballs, and had another 12 that have been region, district, or league MVPs between Hawaii, Nevada, Idaho, and Utah. Because I have kids that drive to me to train one-on-one. I don't train that many kids, but the kids have been very successful. I have had 5 players lead their entire state, all classifications in 3-point shooting in that time. I've had 4 lead their entire state in assist. So that's, I'm not training 100 kids. I don't have time. But if you
got books to write, John.
the books came as a natural evolvement from training and wanting people to have the right information. You know? And for over a decade, I was the national basketball clinic director for Converse Shoe Company when they were big, and I did like over 60 videos. So I got an extensive library.
They're coming back though. They signed Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, who I think is going to be the MVP this year. I think the Thunder are going to win it all, to be honest. And they signed him as an athlete. I think that's a big deal. I think Converse, well, they're owned by Nike now, so
right.
It's going to be.
Yeah, that's when I walked away. Is when they went into semi-bankruptcy. It wasn't my fault. It was the president's fault. He was stupid in his decisions. But when they sold out to Nike, that's when I walked away. And I went abroad in basketball. But your predictions are pretty good. He will be the MVP, but Celtics will repeat. And I'm going to tell you why. The Thunder are 1 year away. They need one more year of playoff experience.
I'll tell you why I think you're wrong, because I think the Thunder are going to play the Cleveland Cavaliers in the in the NBA Finals.
Okay, we're going to bet lunch on that, Adam.
All right, it's done. It's online. Listen,
so
now I will be.
Have had a phenomenal year, but you got to remember in the regular season, for the most part, teams don't play. It's mostly pickup ball for 3.5 quarters in the regular season. You get to the playoffs, things get really down and dirty. And Cleveland doesn't have experience going that deep in the playoffs yet. Boston went through this before they won. Oklahoma City doesn't have that experience. But what does scare me about Oklahoma City is their defense is tenacious.
That's what I was going to say. They have a person who creates offense. I mean, he hunts free throws. He creates offense. They surround him with shooters. He's got a lob threat. Every time on the court, he's got someone rolling hard to the rim, either Isaiah Hartenstein or Chet Holmgren. I thought last year was their okay, we've arrived. I think they lost to the Lakers, maybe, if I recall, in the playoffs. But I
thought it was Minnesota. But
it might have been Minnesota. I just think this is their year. I think they play the right way. I think they're incredibly well coached. I loved the trade for when they traded Josh Giddey for Alex Caruso. NBA championships are won on the margins these days. I saw it with the Denver Nuggets. They had Bruce Brown. They had Kentavious Caldwell-Pope. They had dudes that could defend on the perimeter in the playoffs, which is a huge, huge advantage. And I think Cleveland has the same sort of thing. I think Cleveland has the pieces. Donovan Mitchell has the experience. They compete and play defense at a really high level. Now, Cleveland might be a bit early, but those are my – I don't think the West is even a question at this point. I really don't. And that pains me as a Denver Nuggets fan. We just lost at home.
Yeah, so it'll be interesting to see how Giannis does, but you got to remember Boston's in the top 5 in offense and defense, and they've been on cruise control all year because they're just trying to get healthy for the playoffs.
Yeah,
they've been through it. They know what they got to do. So,
sorry, I said we lost. I said we lost to the Bucks. We lost to the Washington Wizards, which is the Bucks is understandable. Losing at home to the Wizards was a cardinal sin. So just had to correct.
No, yeah,
no, it was bad.
So.
All right. Well, we both agree that you have an incredible opportunity. Everybody go check out basketballdoctor.net or send a text here to 801-550-9131. Get your chance to go out, play in front of some coaches. And every week, if you have the opportunity to, you can play in front of play with Coach John Scott in terms of being trained, being taught the game, learning, being involved in his network. I think it's a great opportunity. Coach, I want to say thank you for coming on the podcast. Any last words, any great sayings or words of advice that you might have to wrap us up here?
Well, for players that are out there listening, you need to not make excuses, make effort. And I'll give you one thought to end with. that there's a name for players that do not like to practice, bench warmers. So drill work will make the dream work. Go to work.
I love it. Well, thank you, Coach. I appreciate it.
Adam, thanks for having me on. Good to visit with you.
Yeah. Hang on. I'm going to hit end recording, but hang on. We'll talk afterwards. Thanks.